burning questions, just put them in the group chat. I will be monitoring it and answer, or we'll just go through them at the end.
Thanks, Roberto. All right, so the agenda today is what is TLPay. I just want to just talk about it again, just as a general concept, what it's about. Withdrawals. I've had a few support calls coming in about how to withdraw, when to withdraw, why would you need to withdraw, things like that. Just recap the TLPay cycle and the timings around that. Funding notifications, what they mean, are they useful? I know there's some challenges around the notifications and when you do the funding and things like that. I want to talk through that. And then funding TLPay feedback and mechanisms. So that's all the feedback I spoke about. And also identification of where money's coming out, because we've got caps. Some agents are on caps as well as TLPay. Got a few suppliers that are still on ABTA, which we're cutting over. And so I recognize there's more to deal with in terms of actually it's not just one place, it's possibly two places money's coming out of. I just want to talk through how to easily identify that and manage what you need to know in terms of actually funding and where money's coming out of. Okay, and as we said, as always, questions and answers, which we could verbally discuss at the end, or please pop your questions in the chat, and either myself or Roberta will answer those. So just to recap what TLPay is, I just want to reinforce that TLPay is it's a digital banking platform. It's an e-money account, technically. That e-money account is it's an account in your own name. So when you registered for the account, you registered it in your company's name. And if you go onto the TLPay page and the funding tab, you'll see it's in your company name. You'll see your dedicated TLPay account number and your dedicated and the sort code associated with that. So each company on the platform has their own TLPay account, and it's effectively like another bank account in your company name. So like any bank account, you can put money in and take money out as and when you wish to. Okay, so I had a few because of some of the confusion around, obviously some stuff's going via TLPay and some stuff's still going via ABTA debit. I've had a few scenarios where wallets or TLPay accounts have been overfunded, thinking all the money was coming out of TLPay, but actually some of it came out via direct debit from your current account. And then it was all, I've paid TLPay, there's extra money, what am I doing about that? So I want to just talk about, how you identify what you need to put into TLPay. And secondly, if you have overfunded it, you can instantly withdraw it. It's a bank account, it's super quick, in and out, with funding and withdrawing. So I want to talk to that as well. So instant fund processor, depending on the mechanism you use to fund it. But a lot of the banks are using either the overnight or the faster pay mechanism. It instantly goes into the account. However, we did have some issues the first couple of weeks with our open banking partner, where it wasn't recognizing the money coming in quick enough in a few instances. I think we had probably around about, I think it was about 20 to 30 instances where that happened. And that did cause a little bit of an issue on that first and second week, but we put mechanisms in to address that. So that problem has pretty much gone away. Okay, so just as I said, so TLPay is effectively a bank account, and you can, if you log in to TLPay and you needed to withdraw money because you've overfunded the account, or you've had a refund come in, you go to the withdraw tab, and then you'll have to tick this little box here, which should be displaying your current bank account. So your normal business current bank account will be displayed here. You select that, and then you put the amount in that you wish to withdraw. So you just type in the amount here, and then you put a reference, and that's your own reference, whatever you wish to put. TLPay, whatever you want to call it, and that reference will then show up on your current account bank statement with the amount once it's chosen your bank account. Now, when you submit that withdrawal, it shows the mechanisms we use are faster pay. So the money should show in your account fairly quickly. Within the hour, it should be reflecting in your current account. So you have full control of this in terms of what you put into it, how you fund it, and how you take money back out again. The one caveat I do need to give you around this is if it is a refund that's coming from a supplier, we put a 24-hour hold on that, and that's just from because it's early days. We just want to be secure. We want to make sure that everything goes wrong. Anything goes wrong, we've got time to adjust that and address that. So if you've got refunds you want to withdraw back into your current account, please wait until the Monday morning to do that, and then you can withdraw them. So that's a temporary restriction we have in place, and as we monitor the system, and we'll review those restrictions and possibly lower them or remove them completely. But that's the restriction we have at the moment. However, that doesn't apply if you overfunded your account and you want to withdraw it back out immediately. You can withdraw it out immediately. Okay, straight in and straight out. Okay, so that's withdrawing. I just wanted to talk through the cycle again, which I think you're all very familiar with. Just for sake of just covering it again. So obviously your suppliers will upload the data, and then on the Monday at 10 a.m. you've got everything to review. And at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday is once we lock everything in, and at that point we know exactly what the positions are that everybody owes or is receiving, and we send a notification to that effect. But having spoken to a number of you, what I've seen a pattern is so some of you may be, well, you know what, I'm going to go into Travel Edge on a Monday. I'm going to process my transactions then, and because that's my function I'm doing, I'm going to make sure I fund my wallet as well at the same time. And because you don't have a notification at that point in time, you may not know exactly how much you're needing to put in because of factors like, some of it's going to come out of your current account, if it's caps, advantage scheme, and things like that, which may not be impacting you, but it impacted a few people. So there was a little bit of confusion about how much to put in because they weren't looking at the notifications because they weren't literally processing that function earlier in the week. So we understand that now, and we're building a dashboard and some more functionality to give you a better view and do a calculation for you earlier in the week. So there'll be a new login page which takes you straight to the dashboard coming in. Probably it's going to take us about 2 to 3 months to get that done, and that's going to give you a much better overview of where things are happening. In a couple of slides, I'll show you a bit more about how to dissect and see exactly what you got to put into your TIP account, which will hopefully help with this. But if you're unsure, and also some people don't necessarily work on a Thursday or a Friday, which is why they transfer earlier in the week. If you're unsure, or at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, we'll give you a definitive notification, telling you exactly how much has got to be in your TRP account. So I'm not sure everyone's getting those notifications, but I'll just show you an example of that in a couple of slides. I think there's something in the chat, Roberta. I don't know if you're addressing that. Okay. And then, we're suggesting you fund your account on a Thursday, but as I said, that's happening at different times during the week. But the safest last moment in time that you should fund your account is, if you want to do the cheapest mechanism, is a overnight faster pay, as I've seen it's called in the banking world, which is effectively doing an overnight payment. You're loading it, comes out of your account probably about just after midnight on the Friday morning, and it should instantly show in the TLPay account. Now, as I said, we did see some delays on that, but we've addressed that, so that shouldn't be happening. So you should be very confident that if you do that on the Thursday, you're meeting the deadline and it will be in the TLPay account. And if there's not, we're addressing that, but you should have no issues with that going forward. If, however, you did miss that for whatever reason, you wanted to do it on the Friday morning, you can do an instant faster pay on the Friday morning, obviously a slightly higher charge. but that would reach your TLPay account in time. And the funding deadline, as we say, is midday on a Friday. So by midday on a Friday, the funds need to show it in the TLPay account. And then we'll process that for a couple of hours, and our settlement will complete at 2 p.m. that day, because it takes some time to just go through all the processing of that. So at 2 p.m. on a Friday, if you're getting refunds, you'll be able to see that in your account. And if you've paid your suppliers, you'll see all that money's gone out of your TLPay account, and your supplier, the suppliers will have their money as well. So that's a totally automated process. You don't need to do anything in that process. We do all the calculations, we do all the payment movement instructions from your TLPay account to your supplier's TLPay account. All the reverse, if it's a refund, comes out of your supplier's TLPay account and comes into your TLPay account. Okay, so it's literally money moving in and out of your effectively bank account on the Travel Ledger platform. And then, as I said, on the Monday is where you can withdraw if it is a refund as such. So we're suggesting wait until the Monday, at which point you'll be able to do the withdrawal, just for a refund perspective. Okay, so I spoke about the funding notification, and my automation's got a bit wrong. That little yellow line will become clear in a second what that means. And so as I said, at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, we send out notifications, and we give you instructions on exactly what to fund your TLPay account with. And here is an example of that. And this first box here is what we're suggesting you put into your TLPay account. This is an example, of course, in this slide. And I've highlighted the word TLPay here. I think our wording on this notification has not been as good as it could be. So we are changing the wording a bit to make it clear it's TLPay, or if it's via APTA direct debit, or the Advantage Caps direct debit scheme, which will directly debit from your current account and not TLPay, will make it clear in the notification which mechanism it is. All right. So if you have stuff coming out of TLPay and stuff maybe coming out of your current account on the CAPS Advantage scheme, we'll send you two notifications. We'll send you one for TLPay, telling you the exact amount, and then we'll send you one for the direct debit via CAPS, and we'll tell you the amounts that are coming out of that. So if you've got two notifications, obviously it's telling you what's coming out where in terms of your bank accounts that you have. Okay, so that's the notifications. Right, so
Simon, sorry,
yes.
before you move on, if you go back one slide, I think this would be the right place to answer the question. One of the questions was, if the notifications come out on Wednesday, Thursday, what happens if the account is not funded on time? And obviously, as Simon just said, the notifications will come out, that do come out at 4 on a Wednesday, so it's always on the Wednesday. And obviously you have, from that moment on, if you want to wait for the notification, you have between Wednesday at 4 o'clock and Friday at lunchtime at 12 o'clock to make sure that the funds get there. And there are a variety of methods for the money to get there. And obviously, if the funds do not get there at all, if like it has happened to a couple of people, that they didn't actually do anything, they didn't make the deposit, then obviously the settlement will fail. The supplier and the buyer will get notification that there was no payment because there were not enough funds, or there were no funds at all, and then it needs to be resolved from there, exactly the same way that if a direct debit would fail, sometimes that would happen as well, and then it needs to get settled via the platform. So we have some mitigating factors, like the 2-hour window that we do the settlement, but ultimately, there are 2 days of time to transfer the funds. If the funds don't get into the account by the deadline, then obviously it needs to be settled in a different way.
If I could add one thing to that,
Yeah.
So I've seen some scenarios where if the funds arrive after the deadline, so let's say, for instance, you've got £10,000 sitting in your TLPay account, but it was after the deadline, we will have unfortunately had to fail the payments to your suppliers because the money wasn't there at the right time. But then that money is still then sat in your TLPay account, right? So you can either leave it there for the following week, whatever you owe to your suppliers. You may have to top it up, or you could reduce it, or you could then remove it and obviously then resubmit that into your TLPay account the following week from a cash flow perspective. So that was a bit of confusion that was happening as well, because people say, oh, but the money's there in my TLPay account, the suppliers haven't taken it. What are they going to do? So if we've failed it, then the supplier is up to the supplier to reload the invoices, which will show in the following cycle, hopefully, if they've done it on time, for you then to accept them or reject them or whatever you want to do. And then that'll then put it forward for the following week's settlement window, if that makes sense.
Or if the supplier says, no, I need the money today, you can withdraw it from the TLPay account into your normal bank account and send it to them separately. Now, we are working on implementing ways to potentially allow you to settle even after something has failed. But as I said, we're discussing exactly how that will work, and we'll implement it over the next coming months. But for now, if the payments has failed because the funds arrived too late, and the supplier says, I need the funds now, you can withdraw it and then send it to them via normal bank account.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing we're also going to do is just generate a reminder notification if at a certain point in time there's not enough funds in your account.
Yeah.
You've got like an hour or something just to top it up. You'd then have to use the faster pay mechanism, which would instantly put it into your account. So there's lots of mechanisms to stop the funds arriving after the deadline, if that makes sense. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it did happen, we will fail the payment instruction to your supplier, and then you would have to either pay them via the following cycle or pay them direct. Okay, hopefully that explains that. If there's more questions around that, you need us to explain that a bit more, happy to talk through that with you. Okay, so quite a lot of feedback, as I said, in terms of things that are harder, was being harder from a funding perspective. I just want to talk through the feedback I've had. In part, some knowledge that I have, and please take it from where it comes. I'm not sitting in your role dealing with what you have to deal with day to day and the banks and your banks. So these are purely suggestions, and it's an opportunity for us to impart feedback we've had, and then to build upon that feedback and get this to the most efficient possible way we can make it for everybody. Okay. So one of the key things we've seen is that certainly in the first couple of weeks, I think a lot of you experienced issues with daily transfer limits that were imposed by your bank, and that then necessitated you having to do transfers. You know, if your daily limit was £20,000 and you owed £40,000, then you obviously needed to do a transfer on the first day and a transfer on the second day, which we know is less than ideal from many perspectives. What we do know is the banking system allows actually up to £1 million transfer limit from a faster pay perspective or an overnight faster pay. The banking world out there allows that, but then it comes down to what your bank has limited to your account individually, and they may have imposed much lower restriction or much lower limits on your account. So obviously what we're suggesting is please talk to your bank manager. Explain to them that this is effectively an account in your company name. It is absolutely in your company name. It's your account. So, you know, there should be an ability to transfer greater amount in your limits from your current account into your other bank account, if that makes sense. So I'd welcome any feedback on this, but obviously we're asking everyone to please talk to their bank manager, ensure that your limit is set appropriately. And I guess you could also obviously figure out what your average weekly payments are to your suppliers. Obviously that's cyclical depending on peak season and things like that. But obviously understanding what that is and then making sure that your bank allows the appropriate limits transfer then in one go into your TLP account.
Yeah, and on this topic, there's a slight difference between talking to your bank manager or the service center that services your account ahead of time before you actually make the transfer, so that they know and they can put it on the account, versus you trying to make a deposit, the funds being held, you having to speak to somebody on the call center that says, oh, why you're making the transfer, you explain it. If that's the only conversation you have, normally the people that work in the call center, they can authorize it as a one-off. So if you have spoken to somebody before to try to make sure that they let the payment go through, that doesn't mean that will stay on the account. While if you speak to them ahead of time, then normally that puts it into the account and then will prevent it from happening again. So that I just wanted to point out that there's a slight difference between reacting to some money that has been stopped once and being a little bit more proactive in making sure that the bank knows there's a note in the account, and that helps to avoid that problem.
Thanks, Roberto. So then I wanted to once again, lots I've learned over the last few months, and also by talking to many of you. So there's obviously the different funding or transfer mechanisms. Overnight is the cheapest, and you've got an overnight fast pay, or you've got a 3-day notice. Some banks out there, like the Bank of Ireland, don't have these faster pay mechanisms. So then you're using either a 3-day notice or an overnight notice. You're using whatever mechanism you feel is the cheapest mechanism to actually do the transfer. But I think what I've seen in some of the research we've done, the absolute cheapest, quickest mechanism is the overnight. So it's putting that instruction into transfer, and you can put that instruction into your current account system that you want to transfer this amount, say on a Thursday night. And that then once the bank initiates that instruction from their side, I've looked at all the data and they use the faster pay mechanism, and faster pay is an instant transfer. So literally I've seen a lot of money coming in to companies' TLP accounts after midnight, once the banks initiate all those instructions you've put in place. And so that's cheapest, super fast and very safe mechanism to ensure it's there by midday on the Friday. But you may wish to do that earlier in your week, depending on your daily routines, and I totally get that. And then we also looked at faster pay as a mechanism. If you had to say, oh, I've got to top up the account, I've realized that it's Friday morning. I would say never use Chaps, because Chaps is ridiculously expensive. I think it's like £25. I think faster pay on the day of, or instant, you want an instant transfer, depending on the bank. But I think it went up to, Roberto, what was the amount? We saw about £2.50.
Well, it depends on the bank. Some banks, some of the, if you have accounts with some of the new entrance banks, they don't actually charge anything, or they charge, 25p. Otherwise, the average is about 45p.
Okay.
Some charge you more, like we were looking at an example where if you want to do it immediately today, they charge you £2. So again, you need to look at, what facilities does your bank offer you and what makes more sense. Going back to what Simon was just saying a minute ago about the overnight fast pay being the cheapest one, that's in my opinion, what I would recommend. So you get a notification on a Wednesday, you set it up on the Wednesday to go out on the Thursday, so you get an extra day of interest on that money. The bank would then will process it on Thursday, at the end of the day on Thursday, and then the money will be there by Friday morning. So that's gives you plenty of time, and it optimizes your cash flow as well.
Okay. Yeah, so as I said, these are learnings that we are gathering and happy to pass it on. But we may be telling you how to suck eggs on this, so I do apologize if that's the case, but it's just imparting what we're hearing and seeing. Right, so managing a TLPay account while on leave. I've had quite a lot of companies make the same points, especially the smaller companies that are out there that don't have finance teams. And it's, how do you manage this when you leave? I don't have an absolute answer for this, but here's some suggestions. So please take them from where they come. They're not absolutes. So ensure obviously adequate balance. So keep enough funds in your TLPay account before leaving. You can fund your TLPay account at any time you like. Obviously, there may be cash flow restrictions stopping that, but you could put the funds in on the Monday morning. If you know what the average week's going to be, you'll see first thing Monday morning what your likely exposure is, or you could do it the week before you go away and leave. You may not feel comfortable with that, but that's one suggestion. Obviously, mobile banking these days stand to be corrected, but I think if you add TLPay, which is your own account, as a beneficiary or a payee into your mobile banking app, obviously you could execute that transfer from wherever you are in the world. And you could schedule the 4 payments. As Roberta said earlier, you can put the instruction into your bank to do the overnight at whatever time you so wish it to happen. And what we're also doing is just trying to help with this as well. If, say, for instance, you're not sure how much you need to put in, I'm going to just put in, say, for instance, I think it's around about 50K, but I'm just going to put in 70K just to cover it. I don't want that whatever I've left over after we've settled everybody. I might have 20K left in my account. I don't want that sitting there for another week. I want to put that back into my account. We're going to enable an automated withdrawals feature, which we're working on. So in a few months' time, there'll be something you can set up which says like any balance left in my account, automatically put that back into my current account after the settlement window. So that tries to address if you've put a certain amount in early in the week just to cover whatever it is while you're away, we can then automatically put back whatever is left over or the excess that's in your TLPay account on the Friday. So those are some suggestions. Tell me if I'm just telling you stuff which you already know, or this is not practical. Happy to get feedback and work with feedback, and you can make a feedback as harsh as you like. We're open listening to it and trying to make this process as smooth as possible for you. Okay, so payment scheme identification. So I've been talking a lot about some confusion that's happened with some agents that are on 2 different schemes. So they're on the Advantage Cap scheme and they're on TLPay or APTA. But there's an additional complication where certain suppliers have just not cut over yet, and we're working with them. They're all engaged with us to get cut over, but there's various nuances, which is just making it take a little bit longer with some suppliers. And we expect them to hopefully all be cut over within the next 2 to 3 weeks. There is when you're on the login page, you'll see there's a link there to give you an indication of which suppliers those are. But if you do owe some of these suppliers that are not cut over yet, they will still continue to come out via the direct debit mechanism from your current account directly. And so I want to just talk through how do you decipher what's what and how do you identify that. So we do send you the notifications at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, but you may want to process this earlier in terms of what you've got to pay where. So this slide is about telling you how to identify that. So There is a column that you will see on your bookings tab, and I'll show you a screenshot in a minute, called processing entity column. If it's not there, then you can add that column by clicking on the columns button, scrolling down, ticking the box next to the processing entity, and that column will then display. And this column then displays one of three different things, names. It'll either say APTA, which means it's coming out of your current account via direct debit. So Advantage, the Advantage cap scheme, which means it's coming out of your current account via direct debit, or direct, okay, which probably not the best label, but direct, which equals TL Pay. All right, so you could then filter, and let's just bring up that screenshot. So it's normally around about the 5th or 6th column in, depending on which columns you've got enabled. And if you're not seeing it around about the 5th or 6th column along, as I said, click on the columns button and add it, right? And then if you click this little arrow, there's a drop down. You can then filter if you wanted to on each of these. And if you filter on direct, then you'll see your amount will change, and that'll be the total of what you're paying via TL Pay. Or if you clicked on Advantage and APTA together, unticked direct, then your total will show you what's coming out of your current account via direct debit. Additionally, on each line and invoice that you're processing, you will see this label against each particular line, and that'll tell you exactly which mechanism it's using to pay your supplier. Okay, so to recap, make sure you've got the processing entity column enabled. If it's not, click on the columns button and enable it. And then you can either manually visually look down your invoices that you're processing, or use your filters button by clicking on this drop down arrow and filter on whichever scheme you want, or whichever combination of schemes you want, and then look at your total, which is actually the current amount, but these are all objective, so it's 0. So it'd be this one over here. And whatever that amount is what you need to either put in your TL Pay account, or recognize you need to have those funds available in your current account. Okay, so if you want to process on the Monday, you can use these filters to see what are my amounts. Right, I'm filtering on direct, right? The amount that's showing is 30,000, right? I'm going to put that into my TL Pay account. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Something else as well. Okay, so just to reiterate, for anybody that's new to the concept, TL Pay is not direct debiting from your current account. You have to transfer the funds into your TL Pay account. Once you've done that, then we move the funds from your TL Pay account automatically to pay your suppliers. And I think the thing to say is the Advantage cap scheme, so likes of EasyJet, Anscrow, Book a Bed, I don't know, there's the Gecko, all those suppliers, if you're paying them via Travel Ledger, they will continue to direct debit via your current account for the foreseeable. The Advantage cap scheme is not moving to TL Pay. It's possible they may do in the future, but that's not on the immediate horizon. Okay, thank you. So that is the information I wanted to impart to you today. Open to any questions you may have.
Hi, Simon. It's Alison. Being as we're a buyer and a seller, we were sort of hoping that this system would be flow a little bit better. So when our funds come in from our agents on a Friday,
Yes.
We were sort of hoping that the funds that need to go out to our vendors would sort of come out of that balance, and then we could just withdraw the difference. But it doesn't seem to be working like that, because the funds that come into us seem to be coming in slightly after the 12 o'clock deadline. So we're having to put money in to cover the vendor payments, and then once that's all been done, we can then withdraw the other funds. Is there any way that could
Yeah. Yes, we've got a mechanism to address that now, Alison. Are you joining the webinar this afternoon dedicated to suppliers?
I am, yes.
Great. If you wouldn't mind, I'll cover that question from a supplier perspective in that webinar.
No problem at all.
All right, thanks, Alison. Good question.
Thanks.
Any other questions? As always, you can always pop your questions to support@travelledger.org. I'm across most of that. And as I get feedback and we learn and get your feedback, we're very open to feedback and adjusting our processes, platform to make your processes as smooth as possible. That's ultimately our goal. Okay, so no more questions coming in. I wish you all a pleasant rest of the day and catch up soon. Thank you.
Thanks.